Hello and welcome to episode 38 of the Swimrun Show podcast. I'm Mike and we've got a super guy this week. We always have super people, but this is our new favourite episode. It's Swain. He's taken on organising the Scilly Swimrun. It's now called the Archipelago Swimrun. Of course, it was an Otelo race back in 2016. The World Series course landed on the Scilly. And it happened several years up until 2022. And Wes has taken it on and made it. By the sounds of it, he's made it better. The actual course, believe it or not, sounds better than the original. So that is cool. He's also added loads of shorter versions and kids' races, all sorts. He's done a great job and really encourage you to check it out as a race to sign up to if you can. Here we go. Wes Swain, Scilly 60. Okay, we have Wes Swain here from the Scilly. How are you, Wes?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, pleasure. Glad to have you on. So, Wes, you may know that Wes organises the Scilly Swimrun now under the Scilly 60 organisation. That's right. The company's called Scilly 60, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So, it all started 2023. I was looking for, to be fair, the real story is it starts in 2022. Myself and my swimrun partner qualified for the Otelo World Championships at the Isles of Scilly race. And although we wanted to take part, we couldn't afford it. So Tresco Island sponsored us and said that we'd love to see Islanders go to the go to the World Championships and represent the Isles of Scilly. So we went there, and after that, I was coming back thinking, it'd be really nice to do something to kind of say thank you, and I couldn't think of anything. And then I was going for a run. I thought, I've not run around Agnes yet. I must do that at some point. And then by the end of this run, I'd come up with this idea that, I'm going to try and run all 5 islands in a day within certain cut-offs. And then within another day's thinking, it's like, no, I'm going to put a race on and get everyone else over and do that. And all of a sudden, it all just come out of nowhere. So the Scilly 60 race started.
Right.
And then it just made sense just to keep the Scilly 60 brand in and just become Scilly 60 events from there.
Yeah, brilliant. So that's the Scilly 60. Is it 60k or 60 miles?
60k, yeah.
60k.
So,
Right. And that's running around all the islands, and that's running only, right?
That's running only.
Yeah.
So, it's circumnavigation of all 5 inhabited islands. The cut-offs are based on 7 minutes 30 per kilometre. And you don't carry any time. So say you finished one island with 10 minutes to spare, you don't carry that 10 minutes. So where a lot of people are like 7 minutes 30 per kilometre or 12-minute miles, that's all right. The 4th island in, the 5th island in, when you've got 45k in your legs, all of a sudden it's quite hard to start another race having to keep these cut-offs, and it turns out it's quite hard.
Okay,
I
cool.
I didn't really realise how hard it would be until the first year, and when so many people didn't make it, it's like,
right,
oops.
Okay, well, we will definitely talk a lot of swimrun in a minute, but one last thing on this Scilly 60 is between the islands. Is it a boat or?
Yeah, it's a boat. And that's like the biggest thing is don't miss the boat. So, for example, St. Martin's, you've got 75 minutes to get round. And after 75 minutes, I blow the hooter, we get on the boat and the boat leaves. And if you've not made it, you're left on the island. And
Till next year.
That's it. I am slightly nice. I do put on a sweeper boat to pick everybody up that doesn't make it. So... and then you get to go to the next island, so you just get to cheer everyone on. And there's a pub at the start and finish line of just about every island. So if you don't make it, you just sit and have a pint and watch everyone else suffer, which is just
Uh,
as good, it seems.
well, no wonder you've definitely returned the investment that Tresco made in you for the World Champs. I'll have to speak to some local organisations around my area. But cool. Well, ours is Scilly Swimrun, which has
Yeah,
taken on a new, obviously, it was Otelo race from
yeah.
2016. Great success to till 2022, I think.
Yeah.
And you've taken that on and expanded a few more options. It's like a 4-day extravaganza, right? Talk us through all the options there, Wes.
Yeah, so now, well, when Otelo used to come over, um, after my first year taking part in 2017, I realised there was only a few locals that knew what it was about. So I said to Max and Michael at the time, would you mind if I organised a kids event for the Friday afternoon? So I started from 2018 onwards. Every Otelo event, I would run a kids event on the Friday before, um, and it was absolutely brilliant, you know. But it also meant then that the kids took part, the parents cheered on, the grandparents and neighbours marshalled, and all of a sudden everybody on the islands knew what Swimrun was,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to looking out the windows like there's guys in wetsuits running past again.
Yeah.
So that really helped. Um, and then now, with myself organising it, I do a social swim run on the Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
So those who've never taken part in a swim run before can come and have a go. Those that are doing one or more events can come and see what the water's like. I'll talk everybody through how swim run works, you know, how to use equipment, tethers, pool buoys, paddles, all of these bits and pieces. I'll talk them through certain swim sections that I would recommend either using paddles or not using them because of the
Mm-hmm.
seaweed.
Yeah.
And we'll just kind of have a really nice social swim run. Then the Friday, we do the St Mary's half and the St Mary's full, all at the say at the same time. We've got the full that starts, and then 5 minutes later, the half starts. So the full is a complete circumnavigation of St Mary's. So it's about 16 kilometres in total, about 3K of swimming and 13 or so of running, and it's it's an amazing course to completely circumnavigate an island is amazing.
Mm.
Luckily, living here for me when I was training, when I was actually taking part in the longer swim runs, that was my training ground. Every week, I'd just do
Brilliant.
a loop of St Mary's, and it was fantastic. Um, so we have that on the Friday. The Saturday is the kids event. For me, that's the absolute highlight. Seeing these youngsters, you know, like some of them are babes in arms and parents are carrying them. Some of them are like one or two just taking their first few steps and they've got these swim run bibs on that touch their ankles. And they're like tiptoeing through the water, trying to stay upright. And it's just really, really lovely to see. And it goes all the way through. There's a few different courses depending on age ranges and ability levels of what they want out of it. So anything up to a 5K swim run,
Wow.
which is really, really lovely. And then we finish the weekend on the Sunday with the Archipelago swim run, which is about 36 kilometres, 10 different islands, some pretty big swims,
Mm-hmm.
some smaller swims. There's little bits of tide in there, a whole heap of seaweed.
Yeah.
And this year we were lucky, to be fair. The day I was marking up, so the day before the social swim run on the Wednesday, I had a few text messages from friends coming through saying the water is unswimmable. There is too many jellyfish. And it's like, oh, okay. So where I was marking up, I was on some of the smaller islands out the way. So that obviously makes you really worried. It's like, how many jellyfish are there? And you saw these pictures, and it really was soup. You know,
Wow.
in your 2 meter arm span, or rough arm span. Obviously, I've
Mm.
got ape arms. You would have probably 10 jellyfish within that 2 meter square. And it's like, oh god, I'm not gonna be able to, this can't happen. So before doing the social swim run on the Thursday in the morning, instead of setting everything up and being all good and setting tables up, I had to get in my swim run suit and do a loop of the island just to actually make sure it was all swimmable.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, the wind direction had changed, and the jellyfish had disappeared for a few days, and they seemed to come back the day after the archipelago swim run,
Mm-hmm.
which
Wow.
which I'm
They must have heard
incredibly
the race was
grateful
on.
for.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so it's a big old weekend, but it just means
Yeah.
that people that are coming across, the Isles of Scilly isn't easy to get to. There's no
Mm-hmm.
denying that.
No.
Um, it's a pain to get to. We're the end of the world. Um, it's expensive. So if you're going to come all that way, why not do a social swim run, do a St Mary's swim run, and if you're someone who's got the ability to do the longer runs, then you've got a day off. You can watch your kids or other people's kids do a junior one before doing the big one yourself. So you can make a real weekend and
Mm.
make it really feel worthwhile taking part in the City 60 swim
Yeah.
runs.
Yeah. Good stuff. That's not a message you want, is it? Just prior to a race, the water's unswimmable.
Yeah.
That's what. But the jellies, just on that, what kind of jellies are they?
So mainly they're the purple mauves. So
Okay.
they're tingly.
Yeah, tingly. Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not super bad.
Yeah.
However, that if you get enough of them,
Yeah.
it's gonna be bad. And if you're someone who suffers from any form of
Mm.
anaphylaxis or anything like that, as a race director, it's a huge worry.
Mm.
For me, I've got a nut allergy.
Right.
So I was actually really nervous knowing that I've got to go and test all this out. No one knows, my wife knows I'm out, but I've got
Somewhere.
no safety
Yeah.
boat or nothing like that. And I'm putting myself out there being like, oh, I really hope I don't get loads of stings and
Yeah.
something bad happen. But I've just got to
Yeah.
do this and make sure it's safe for everyone else first.
Yeah. Good stuff. Well done, Wes. Day in the life of a race director.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things. Yeah. First off, is the course the same as the Archipelago course now? Is it the same as the original Oslo World Series?
It's similar.
Okay.
I've made a couple of changes. For me, I always got cold,
Mm-hmm.
and I was one of the few people that raced in a long wetsuit. I made my own wetsuit. I bought a swimming wetsuit because they're thicker, and then I cut it down the front and sewed in a zip so
Mm-hmm.
that I could have a long sleeve, long leg, thick, warm swimming wetsuit that was good for swim run. And it's the cold that really, really worries me. The Isles of Scilly water temperature is generally colder than most other places. And if the wind's been blowing, even in summer, it can drop right down. And we were really lucky this year that the water temperatures were 16 degrees.
Mm.
But a week later, it was down to 14 again.
Okay. I
So,
I was guessing that you moved it to
sorry,
the
are you
end of
still there, Mike?
August because it was originally. Oh, sorry. Hello.
Ah, cool.
Can
Are
you
you
hear me?
still there? Brilliant. Sorry
I'm
about that.
here. I can hear you. It's
Excellent.
okay. Yeah. It
So,
was
so yeah,
originally in
so I've
early June. Oh, go on. Sorry.
So it's early June was the original time, and the water
Yeah.
temperature was quiet or chilly. So I've moved it to the end of August to make the temperatures more likely to be warm. But the first swim, instead of having the first swim of 2 kilometers and then a 400-meter run and then a 1600 swim,
Mm-hmm.
after the first swim, it's now a 3K run and then a 400-meter swim. So people have got time to warm up. They've got time to fuel. There's an energy station on the way, so you can have a hot drink. And then you go into a shorter swim. So this year we didn't have people getting cold on that part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, many people have spoken on the Swimrun show about the notorious last swim,
Yeah,
the St Martin's to back to St Mary's. You know, you're exhausted, and you've got
yeah,
that 2.5K swim right at the end, which for the majority of people was about an hour.
yeah.
So I've broken that up. So now you get in the water slightly earlier, and it's still quite long. I think we've got about a 1,200 meter swim, um, but then we've got three of the small Eastern Isles.
Mhm.
So we've got little Ganilli. And then you've got a small swim that's just seaweed. It's amazing.
Right, right, yeah,
It's really good fun. So yeah, I always recommend no paddles on that and just pull
yeah,
yourself through the seaweed.
yeah.
Um, and then you've got Little Arthur and Great Arthur. The view from Great Arthur is absolutely spectacular. We put a marshal on top of Great Arthur and tell the runners, please stop. Just take 20 seconds, do a 360, and just have a look because
Mm,
it's really, really spectacular. Um, and then you get back in the water. It's then an 1,800 meter swim. Um, Over to a different place, so it's to another small island, Tolls Island, that's a tidal island connected to St Mary's. So
okay.
although in total you're swimming further, you've got time out of the water, you've got marshals around with hot drinks. You can, for me, um, when I was swimming with one of my swim run partners, I'd be at the back of the swim, and if you get cold, that's it. You've got an hour of being cold, sitting in
Mm,
the draft,
yeah,
um, knowing that I'm not fast enough to overtake, but I'm
yeah.
not swimming fast enough to keep warm. And
Mm,
I just, and I can't communicate that to my partner.
mm,
Whereas by breaking it up, I can say to my partner, look, I just really need to lead the first 300 meters, get some warmth in me, and then you
mm,
can take the speed on. So, for me, the cold was the biggest thing that I wanted to push out of the way as a barrier for our
mhm,
swim runs. Um, but by adding in those islands and those little twists to the Otelo route, um, it has been really good, and we've been really lucky that we've had a few people that took part in the Otelo course that also took part this year. And they were really pleased with the
mm.
with the course changes, which is really
It
nice to hear.
Yeah, it sounds better. Like from what you've just said, it sounds slightly better course, definitely for me. And I love a transition. So there's even more transitions now. So I'll have to get down there. So another thing you've mentioned a couple of times, that the seaweed. So yeah, it's great. It's one of those aspects of swimrun I love where you've got to look at each course and each section and think what kit you're going to use. You know, you're not just going to use paddles on every swim necessarily. I know most people do, but not necessarily. And I'd, ours are silly. I'd consider if I did it again, not even taking paddles, depending on my swim training. But I do remember a couple of the swims where you just want to pull the seaweed,
Yeah,
and you were faster doing that. So
yeah.
it's great.
Yeah, my first year doing it, we didn't use paddles, and as soon as we hit the seaweed, we just flew through everyone.
Yeah,
People overtaking us on the clear
yeah,
water, and then
yeah,
it's sea, they're all tangled up and can't get their hands moving, and we're
yeah,
just pulling our way through, just
yeah,
absolutely flying.
yeah.
So, it's definitely swings and roundabouts. There's
Yeah,
some
it is.
really good open clear water, which is great for it, and some really you know, tricky bits with the really long, thin thongweed that
Yeah,
just gets tangled all round.
yeah. Good for your skin, though.
Yeah. And it's just nice. It's just, I really like swimming through it. I think
Yeah,
it's great fun.
yeah, it's
So,
interesting. Yeah, I like it. Um, so travel. You touched on travel there. So there's a couple of options, isn't there? There's like a small plane. I remember when we did it 2016, and we took a small plane out there, and then we got well. Actually, coming back, I was looking at it thinking this is awkward getting back for a certain time. So I actually found a boat that I could charter this boat, but I needed 12 people to make it
Right.
affordable. So I spoke to Michael and Mats, and they said I could announce at the the briefing, if anyone's looking to get back on this boat, it's definitely leaving whenever it was leaving. I think it was £70 each if we fill it with 12 people.
Yeah.
So that all worked out great, but it was a bit touch and go, even with the conditions. That the pilot was like, "Oh, it's not a definite." So you can definitely be scuppered travel wise, can't you? With the old
Yeah, we
wind.
do, try to recommend that people, don't arrive like just before the race. If you're
Mm.
doing an afternoon race, you don't want to get the morning
No.
flight or whatever. You want to give yourself 24 hours, because if it's foggy, you're not going to fly. Or, it's very rare that the Salonian doesn't go. It's got to be
Yeah.
really, really rough. Um, but things happen. You
Mm.
know, we're not a normal race location, so you've got to really just embrace that you're going to come for a long weekend and have a holiday that includes swim run, rather than I am focused on coming for a race and I'm going to get there, race and come home,
Mm.
because all the best intentions in the world, Mother Nature's in charge,
Yeah.
and that's the same with the racing. Um, because we are so, with the archipelago swim run, it is such a, I spend the whole year worrying what the weather's going to
Yeah.
be, because it is so open that it can change everything, which is one of the reasons why it's good to have the kids event on the Saturday, because if I really, really need to, I could swap things around. Now,
Mm.
obviously, if you're arriving late Saturday, then that's too late for you, which again,
Mm.
I do publicise that,
Mm.
the Saturday is the spare day for either the St Mary's races or the archipelago races, to try and, we want the best out of everything. There's a few route changes that we can do and adaptations and stuff. But yeah, you've just got to have so many backup plans,
Yeah.
whether it
Yeah.
be weather or jellyfish.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's really good contingency, having the Saturday or Sunday. I think Otelo did that originally, but I'm not sure if they used it or not.
Yeah, the first one
Was
they
it?
had,
Yeah.
yeah, because they hadn't introduced the sprint yet.
Right.
They
Yeah.
were
Yeah.
trialing the sprint, but nobody
That's
had
it.
turned up, so they
Yeah.
just did it as a social swim run.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, they adapted it a couple of times.
Back in the day. Interesting with the kids race. So I've noticed the new World Series race. They're bringing a kids race in up in Ireland, Finland this year. Otaloa. So you've started that back. Was it 2018, 2019,
2018 was the first
2018?
one. Yeah,
Wow,
we had about 120 kids. It was
wow,
incredible.
that's brilliant.
So
That is brilliant.
yeah,
And did they? I guess the kids had wetsuits on, or what?
yeah.
Yeah.
So the up to about 8 year olds, the first two courses, you're only going into your knees anyway.
Okay.
So and you're with parents or guardians, so it's kind
Yeah.
of up to
Yeah.
their discretion. Um,
Splash. Bit of a
but
splash.
the 3K and the 5K route, for the 8 through to 16-year-olds, they have to be in a wetsuit, because they're encouraged to swim. And again, they can choose not to swim. I want to encourage people into a sport that's friendly, rather
Mm.
than forcing people. If you want to try swimming and you want to try swimming at waist deep, great. If you want to get into the water and think, oh, I don't like this, and just want to walk through the water, that's also great.
Mm.
It's meant to be a nice time with your friends, just trying something new. But yeah, they do have to wear a wetsuit for the longer swim runs, because you want to start the precedent all the way
Yeah.
through, for all of the races.
Yeah.
But yeah, the kids race is a lot of fun.
Yeah, sounds like a great. I hadn't appreciated you could do that there, where there's the depth of water that can facilitate that kind of option for people. That's
Yeah,
cool. That's really cool. Um,
yeah. I think the 2019 year, um, on the Friday for the kids event, there was a named storm, and you got all of these kids out there. We had to say that everybody could only do waist deep.
Okay.
We had to adapt it and say, sorry, there's no proper swimming. And then by the time the archipelago or the World Series race came round, it
Mm.
was flat calm. And I was like, so you got all these professional athletes
Yeah.
out in perfect weather, and these
Yeah.
poor little kids that have never done it before are out in this
Yeah.
atrocious
Brilliant.
weather.
Brilliant.
So yeah, it was all good fun. But
Yeah.
it makes for those stories, which
It
is
does.
always great.
Yeah, it does. Now, speaking of stories, Wes, you've done a few races over the years. What's your favourite kind of swim run race story?
My favourite swim run race story. So 2017 was my first year at taking part in swim run.
Okay.
3 weeks before the 2016 race, one of my friends said, "Oh, uh, I'm taking part," or two of my friends were taking part, and I'd already turned him down and said, "There's no way that I could do the swim run," because we had heard of this guy Roland Kelly who'd come across and scoped it out, and in our eyes, he was a professional swim run athlete, and it had taken him 7.5 hours to do the course, and it's a 9 hour cutoff. So we're like, there's absolutely no way this is something that's feasible for a normal person. Um, he ended up taking over someone else's place. And then they're like, "Oh, we're going out for a training swim run. You should come with us." And I was like, "Okay, I'll trial it." And we did half the course. And I was like, "Oh, feel a bit bad that I'm not doing it now. I quite like this."
Mm.
So then in 2017, I took part in a mixed team. We came eighth overall, but back in the
Wow.
day, not many people took part in swim run, and it was one of the last in the season. And with rollback, we was one stop away from going to the World Championships. And then someone dropped out at the end of July, so with a month to go, we get a ticket to go out to the World Championships. But
Brilliant.
that was 2017. That was the
Okay.
storm.
Yeah.
um, it was, yeah, when you get the race briefing and they say, "We've taken away all the safety kayakers because it's not safe for them, but you
Mm.
guys have proven that you can swim." You're
Brilliant.
like, "Oh, okay." You've got 50-mile-an-hour winds that are rattling the windows. You're not sleeping all night. I don't want to be here whatsoever. Um, and the story that I tell the most is I finished Una, so half marathon, and
Mm.
I finished that run. I still had my swim hat on. I had shivered for 5 hours straight.
Oh my God.
But I was just so cold. How do you run a half marathon with your wetsuit still zipped up, your swim hat on, and still cold? It was just, it was a really, really hard day out. I think
That,
I think we did it in about 13 hours and 20 minutes. And oh my God, it was really, really hard.
yeah.
So
Wow.
that's definitely the big swim run story is
That
that
is
one.
that. Yeah, there's not many. Well, there's not many Brits. I don't think that are on the start line for that one. That's kind of epic, legendary swim run of all time. That one, but with the conditions and everything, and the
Yeah,
kayakers are off the water because it's not safe for them. I love that classic Michael and Matt's uh,
yeah,
crack on.
yeah,
But yeah, it was
yeah.
yeah. Well done, well done on that. So
Yeah.
were you 34th out overall?
No, for that one, we were about 113th ish, something like that. We was seven. I think there's 7 people behind us. There was loads of
Oh, okay,
dropouts that year.
right.
Yeah, that was really, really hard year. We'd only had a month's training beforehand. Um, After the Scilly swim run, I had done my wristing, so I hadn't been in the water since. And then all of a
God.
sudden, you get this message like, "Oh, do you want this place?" It's like, "Oh God, we
Mm.
got 4 weeks to train for this monstrous thing." My training up to the World Swim Run or the Isles of Scilly one, 12K was the longest run I'd done in one hit. Because in my mind, if the longest is 7.5K, then you don't need to train that much further. And I had a young child. I was currently transitioning from one job to the other, which meant I had 2 full-time jobs. And I just didn't have time for training. So I was like, 1 12K run, once a week would be absolutely fine. And then all of a sudden we got 4 weeks to try and think how on earth are we going to run 65K and swim 10. It was
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
But it was
Well,
amazing. It was
yeah.
really, really amazing.
Yeah. So, and your race partner on that day, you were in the mixed category, right? Was that Alison?
Yeah. So I was racing with Alison Stedderford. Yeah. So she's another local here.
Cool.
She's done a lot of swimming and lots of triathlon and bits and pieces. So we teamed up together, and we were really lucky. It went really well. We were the first Isles of Scilly team, like local team, over the Isles of Scilly course back. So that was nice. I kind of felt like I had a target on my back from that year onwards. So with all the locals, then I managed to do the Isles of Scilly World Series race every year that it happened.
Cool.
Right through to 2022, where I was with a different race partner then, Rowan Nightingale, and we ended up coming fourth and qualifying off our own merit for the World Championships, which was just incredible. Half of it was thanks to COVID, because the year before, if we had got our finishing team, we would have come 20th. So it just wasn't the people that came across. But that's not my fault. I'll take that.
Yeah.
So we were lucky to qualify. And then for the 2022 World Championships, we had an absolute stinker of a first swim. I think I'd gone out slightly wide.
To the
I was
right,
leading the swim. No, sorry, to the left. So we
okay.
we were left to the main pack.
Okay.
And I was looking at my watch, and I'm 2 minutes 30, 2 minutes 45 per 100 meters, which is a lot slower than I normally swim. And we got out third from last, and it's like, oh man, like I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. I felt like I was swimming fast. I don't know whether we hit a bit of tide or what, but it was just an absolute terrible start. But from that moment onwards, no one overtook us. We only overtook people, and we went from 147th to 52nd throughout the day, and it was just an amazing time, just constantly like, oh, there's another one, let's take them down, let's take them.
Yeah.
And it was really good fun.
Brilliant. So that was 2022. And so I know you're focused on organising lots of stuff now, but have you got any races you might be tempted to do next year, 2025?
Not at the moment. The thing is, living here, just like everyone else getting here, it's a pain. Having a young family, it's so much time away and all the swim runs are always, they're in the middle of the summer. They're the busy time, or when the kids are off holidays. It's really hard to get away. So there's nothing in the calendar at the moment. There's a couple of courses that I'd like to trial out locally for maybe the 2026 year. I've got a couple of ideas of slightly different styles of events, but I need to see if it's even possible before I can start working out logistics and promoting them for the 2026 year. But I think there's a good chance. There's definitely a watch this space for potential options that could be coming up in the future.
And it went well. I take it, this year, 2024, all went well on the archipelago. I'm particularly interested in the archipelago route. Sounded like it went well.
Yeah, yeah, everyone was really happy. It was a quiet year. There's no denying that. We only had 19 on the start line, so much quieter than Otelo. Earlier in the year, I could see that I wasn't getting many sign-ups, and I was thinking, God, how can I how can I try and promote myself? I don't have a big following on Facebook or any of those things. How can I try and promote Swimrun? I was like, well, I'm known for running with the Scilly 60 things, and earlier in the year I'd done the Arc of Attrition, the 100-mile race.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, so I'm known for running, so I need to get known for swimming. How can I do that? I was like, oh, I know. I had this idea 6 years ago that I could swim to Bishop Rock, the lighthouse, the most southwestern lighthouse in the UK. So
Right.
maybe I should try that. And then I was thinking, well, hang on a minute. I'm really busy in the summer, so I'm going to have to do that like quite soon. So in April, 11 degrees water,
Oh, Jesus.
I swam out to Bishop Rock Lighthouse, which is 7.5K. It took 2.5 hours. It was meant to be calm, but it was still 1.5 meter waves. It was
Wow.
really blooming hard. It was enough to put you off swimming. So
hang on.
and then from that, I was like, brilliant. I'm going to get loads of publicity. People are going to sign up. No one signed up for 2 months. It didn't make a dent.
It's difficult. It is difficult. It seems more difficult now. These years, I'm sure it'll pick up again. But yeah, that's a long way in 11 degrees water there, Wes. Well done. What's 2.5 hours? So how much neoprene did you have on?
That is a very good question. So obviously in the swimming world, anything more than one swim hat is counted as assisted. So I thought, well, if they're counting that as assisted, I may as well crack on and be warm. For me, it's all about safety. And I knew that if I got out to Bishop Rock but I was hypothermic, I've got an hour in a boat, or even with the lifeboats coming out to get me, it's half an hour. I don't want to put anybody at risk. So I need to train to work out how can I do a 2.5 hour swim and still be warm. So I had a hooded thermal vest on, and then a neoprene vest, and then a knee to shoulder over the head wetsuit that had a really nice neck seal but no arms, and then a full length swimming wetsuit. So ultimately, I had four layers of different variations of neoprene on. But I got out and I was warm.
Yeah, and you could move your shoulders. Okay,
that was the
shoulders.
Apart from the actual swimming wetsuit, everything else was cut off at the armpit.
Yeah.
So the shoulders were totally free. It's just I needed to make sure that my core and my head was warm, because there's no way I could. I didn't want the publicity being, race director carted off because he can't keep himself warm or can't look after himself.
Yeah.
So, safety is always the first thing before anything else.
Definitely. Yeah. That's 11 degrees. Yeah. I could do half an hour in 11 degrees. 2.5 hours. God, you need something to keep you warm for sure.
And the thing is, like the tidal streams out there are so strong. You're looking at Bishop Rock. It's the smallest island with a building on it. I think it's less than 20 meters wide, and the tidal streams are pushing you. Like when you get close, it's trying to make you go around rather than to it. And I was told by all the boatmen, there's no chance of this. And I had plans for it taking 4 or 5 attempts, because everyone's like, you're going to get all that way and then just get swept just slightly past it. And once you're past it, you've got no hope of going back.
Okay. Yeah.
So it was, yeah,
So
it
how
was a
was the
big
finish?
worry that you're going to get all that distance.
How was the last 100 meters or whatever it
Yeah,
was?
so the last 100 meters wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I managed to time it perfectly with slack tide right at the middle, right on the landing, which worked. Um, the tidal stream was meant to be with me for the last 2/3,
Mhm.
but it turns out that the tide out there doesn't read tide charts, and the tide was pulling me backwards and sideways and all over the place. So yeah, it was really, really hard going. And then yeah, I managed to, as soon as it was coming up close, you try to get into because I was landing pretty much dead on sunset. So you're just trying to stick in the shadow of the water of the lighthouse, and then the waves are crashing up on the rocks. So you've got to like wait and time it and be like,
Mm.
I'm not going to just touch it. I want to climb up on that blowing
Yeah.
thing. I've earned it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you've got to make sure that you time it all right. And like, if I rip my wetsuit now, it doesn't matter as long as I can
Mm.
get on it. I just got
Yeah.
to climb up and be able to get properly to there. And I was lucky. It all seemed to work out right at the last minute. But yeah, it was a really, really good event. People have said, "Oh, you should organise that as an event,"
Mm.
but it's too
Mm.
the chances of it all working are
Mm.
so slim. I'd spent 3 months trying to make the weather windows work, but
Mm.
it hadn't happened because it has to work on a neap tide, and
Mm.
the waves have to be under 1.5 in swell, and there's so many variants that lining it all up out there is so tricky, and that's tricky as a local, let alone
Yeah.
trying to come across to do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, it was good fun
Well done.
afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done. Well, come on, guys, get signed off. Look at that. Wes is putting his body on the line there. Um, so, yeah. End of August, isn't it? I won't make it this year, but I would like. I like the idea of making a holiday of it and taking the. I've got a 3-year-old. Maybe when he's 5 or 6, get him into the junior race, and
Yeah.
in the future. So
So
yeah, hopefully,
it's the last weekend before the kids go back to school.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's a nice way to finish off the school holidays. Really,
yeah,
have a big blowout. Everyone have a nice time.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, beg
Cool,
pardon. Yeah, it's
good
a good bit
stuff.
of fun.
Okay, Wes. Last thing now. I won't go on about kit too much because it gets a bit repetitive, some of the stuff. But something specific which I've thought about is the
Yeah,
hand paddles. If you are, I know some people. I like to either go with hand paddles or not with hand. Usually with hand paddles, but you can obviously have a carabiner on your waist belt, clip them on. Um, have you got so for some of your swims on the archipelago course there? Have you got any? Have you got any tips for anyone who's a bit unsure about whether to about the paddle situation? Do you think it's best just to
yeah,
do like go on? Sorry.
yeah. So for me, the paddles, I'll swim with paddles. Um, if I'm getting in and I can see lots of seaweed, I just put them inside my wetsuit. The zip at the front. If you stick them on your tummy, they're out the way. Zip the wetsuit up. They'll stay where they are, and then they're all out the way. And I've actually done it mid swim 2 or 3 times. It's all clear when you start, but 800 meters in or 1500 meters in, all of a sudden the weed comes, and you can either choose to try and fight,
Mm,
thinking, "Oh, that will save me time," or you just quickly roll over, undo your wetsuit, whack them inside, zip it back up. You get a little bit chilly because obviously the water's coming in, but it's so much quicker than
mhm,
trying to mess around or then trying to find carabiners.
mm,
And with the thongweed, having anything dangling behind you, um, it's going to tug at it.
yeah.
And the likes of the paddles with the latex or rubber bands, the last thing is you want is to get out and find that it's ripped.
Mm,
And obviously, if it does rip, um, it's then floating off behind you and you won't
Mm,
know
mm,
about it until you get out. Whereas if you chuck it inside your wetsuit, you know it's there. So for me, the less danglies, the better.
yeah,
Now, obviously,
yeah.
if you're doing the solo swim run with me, you need to have a tow float. Um, so, but I've always swam with a tow float in the water. Even when I'm training and I've got a friend either kayaking or boating, for me, it's a no brainer.
Mm-hmm,
A, I want to be seen, and B, if something happens to me, I want something to hold me to the top of the water.
mm-hmm,
Um, so um, and I find that the tow floats don't seem to get tangled in the
mm,
weed. It's the paddles, because they're heavier. They're
yeah,
likely to go
yeah,
lower in the water, and then they'll get tangled. So yeah, chuck them
yeah.
inside your wetsuit. Anything that
That's a
you're carrying, gels, water bottles, every single thing that you're not wearing, put it inside your wetsuit. Breathe in when you try and do the zip up, and then if it sticks in your ribs or whatever as you're swimming, you just got to suck that up until you get out. But most of the time, you can move it around a little bit until it's comfortable.
yeah.
So
Pro tip.
yeah,
That is a great
that's what
tip.
I would say.
Yeah,
That's what I do.
yeah. No, that's
So
great advice. I'd say
yeah,
streamline it, and yeah, particularly yeah. Some paddles could definitely pick up a load of seaweed, and you could be dragging about 4 kilos of seaweed along as well. So yeah,
yeah, well, that's it. Like
yeah.
the weed that we get here, like on the course especially, is really really long, like thong weed. So some of it's like 4 or 5 meters long.
Mm,
So untangling yourself from all of that is an
mm,
absolute pain.
mm,
And yeah, you look behind you, you just see all this massive trail going on way past your feet. You think, oh god,
mm.
I've been dragging that for the last 300 meters. So yeah, the more streamlined you can be, the better.
Yeah, cool. That is a takeaway for the Archipelago swim run. Cool. Well, guys, well, Wes, thank you for coming on. It's been great chatting to you, and have a good
Oh, thanks for
Christmas.
having me. It's been really good fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
good
and you
man.
enjoy.